Good morning to you all. This is Mr. Bob greeting you from his cozy home. In the early hours of the day, as the sun is just starting to peek over the horizon, Mr. Bob stirs awake from his peaceful slumber. With a stretch and a yawn, he greets the new day with a cheery, "Good morning, world!" Then it's time to rise and shine. He swings his legs out from under the warm covers, rubs the sleep from his eyes, and announces, "Time to get up!" With that, Mr. Bob is up and on his feet, ready to start the day with his usual pep and energy. But first things first, breakfast. Mr. Bob believes in the importance of a good, healthy start to the day. He heads over to the kitchen and tells us, "I am having breakfast." He prepares himself a hearty meal, full of all the nutrients he'll need to power through the day. Now, what's breakfast without a hot beverage to wash it down? For Mr. Bob, it's always a steaming cup of coffee. He pours himself a cup, takes a deep breath to enjoy the rich aroma, and with a contented sigh, he shares, "I like to start my day with a cup of coffee." And with that, breakfast is done, and Mr. Bob is all fueled up and ready. He takes a final sip of his coffee, wipes his mouth with a napkin, and stands up from the table. He's ready to take on whatever the day brings. And with that, Mr. Bob is ready to start his day. Off to work he goes. Now, Mr. Bob is at his office, ready to tackle the day's work. As the morning sun streams through his office window, Mr. Bob settles into his chair, ready to face the day's challenges head-on. The office hums with the sound of colleagues busily typing away at their computers, the whir of the coffee machine, and the occasional ringing of the telephone. As he switches on his computer, he warmly greets his colleagues. "Hello, how are you?" he asks, his cheerful tone echoing around the room. His coworkers respond in kind, their faces lighting up with friendly smiles. Mr. Bob is a well-organized individual. He pulls out his planner and skims through his schedule for the day. "I have a meeting at 10, he tells his assistant, who nods and makes a note of it. It's important to communicate clearly in an office setting, and Mr. Bob is a pro at it. As he starts his work, he encounters a particularly challenging task. He studies it, scratches his head, and mutters to himself, "This is a difficult task." But he's not one to back down from a challenge. In fact, he thrives on them. Feeling a bit stuck, he doesn't hesitate to ask for help. He turns to his colleague and politely says, "Could you help me, please?" His colleague nods, and together they dive into the task, exchanging ideas and solutions. Working collaboratively like this not only makes the task easier, but also makes the day more enjoyable. It's all about teamwork and communication in the workplace, and Mr. Bob knows this all too well. Throughout the day, Mr. Bob interacts with his colleagues, discusses work, and solves problems, all the while using simple and clear English phrases. His ability to communicate effectively makes his workday smooth and productive. As the office clock ticks away, Mr. Bob wraps up his tasks one by one. The day's work is challenging, but he tackles each task with determination and a positive attitude. After a productive day at work, it's time for Mr. Bob to enjoy some leisure time. And with a satisfied smile, Mr. Bob powers down his computer, ready to leave the office and embrace the rest of his day. Ah, the park! What a perfect place for Mr. Bob to unwind. There's something so soothing about the rustling of leaves and the harmonious chirping of birds. It's a place where he can take a deep breath and let the fresh air fill his lungs. As Mr. Bob strolls along the winding paths, he spots a few familiar faces. With a friendly wave and a cheerful, "Hello, how are you?" he greets his friends. The park is a communal space, a place where friendships are nurtured and community bonds are strengthened. Mr. Bob can't help but comment on the beautiful day. "It's a sunny day," he exclaims, squinting up at the clear blue sky. There's a light breeze that cools his face, the sun's rays warming his skin just enough to bring a contented smile on his face. He looks around, taking in the lush green grass, the blooming flowers, and the tall, sturdy trees. "The park is beautiful," he says, his voice filled with appreciation for the natural beauty around him. Walking in the park is one of Mr. Bob's favorite activities. "I enjoy walking in the park," he tells his friends. The park, with its serene environment and vibrant ecosystem, is a sanctuary for him. It's a place where he can unwind, relax, and rejuvenate. After a refreshing walk, Mr. Bob decides to head home. His heart is light, his mind is calm, and he is ready to face whatever comes next. Home sweet home. Mr. Bob is back to his peaceful abode. After a long and eventful day, he's more than ready to kick back and unwind. Our dear Mr. Bob loves to immerse himself in a good book. He says, "I am reading a book." With each turn of a page, he journeys into a world of imagination, a world that's different from the hustle and bustle of his everyday life. The book in his hand is not just a collection of printed words, it's a portal to another realm, a realm of tranquility and peace. But sometimes Mr. Bob prefers a change of pace. He likes to switch on his television and say, "I'm watching my favorite show." The bright, colorful screen brings to life a variety of characters and stories, each one unique and captivating in its own way. It's not just the show that's important, it's the joy and relaxation it brings to Mr. Bob that truly matters. As the evening rolls in, it's time for Mr. Bob to satisfy his hunger. He heads towards the kitchen and proclaims, "I'm having dinner." His dinner is a simple yet delicious affair, a perfect end to a perfect day. Each bite is a reminder of the comfort and warmth of home, a sensation that fills him with a sense of contentment. Relaxing at home isn't just about activities for Mr. Bob, it's about experiencing peace and tranquility. It's about cherishing the small moments, the quiet moments. It's about closing the day on a note of satisfaction and fulfillment. And with that, Mr. Bob concludes his day. It's time to say goodnight. The book is closed, the television is switched off, and the dishes are cleaned. The lights are dimmed, and Mr. Bob is ready to surrender to the sweet embrace of sleep. Until the new day beckons, it's a warm and gentle goodnight from Mr. Bob. Good night, everyone.